The year was 2847, and humanity had finally found its place among the stars. For 300 years, Earth had been a peaceful member of the Galactic Council. Humans had proven themselves to be good neighbors. They traded fairly, they helped other species when asked, and they never started wars. Ambassador Porter believed that patience and kindness had finally earned humanity the respect it deserved. She stood in the Great Chamber on Nexus Prime, the capital world of the Galactic Council. Around her sat representatives from over 200 different species. Some looked like insects, others like reptiles, and some were so strange that human eyes could barely understand what they were seeing. Had spent 40 years working with these beings. She considered many of them friends. That friendship was about to be tested. The Dominion was a coalition of 12 powerful species who had ruled their section of the galaxy for thousands of years. They were proud, arrogant, and they had never liked humans. To them, humanity was a young species that had risen too fast and gained too much influence. They believed that the galaxy belonged to the old powers, not to newcomers from a small blue planet. For decades, they had been spreading lies about Earth. They claimed that humans were secretly building forbidden weapons. They said that humanity was planning to conquer other worlds. None of it was true, but they were patient. They planted seeds of fear and let them grow. On this day, those seeds finally bore fruit. High Commander of the stepped forward to address the council. He was a massive reptilian creature, covered in dark green scales, with eyes like burning coals. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. "The humans have betrayed us all," declared. "Our intelligence services have discovered that Earth possesses weapons capable of destroying entire star systems. They have been hiding this technology while pretending to be peaceful. We must act now, before they use these weapons against us." Jumped to her feet. "That is a lie. Earth has no such weapons. We have always been honest with the Council. We have opened our worlds to inspection. We have nothing to hide." But the damage was already done. They had spent years preparing for this moment. They had bribed officials, forged evidence, and convinced enough council members that humanity was a threat. When the vote was called, watched in horror as species after species voted in favor of a preemptive strike against Earth. "Please," she begged, "at least send inspectors. At least verify these claims before you condemn 12 billion innocent people." Speaker, the crystalline being who led the council, shook her head slowly. "The evidence is clear, Ambassador. The council has voted. Earth will be neutralized." Tried to send a warning to her, but they had already jammed all communications from Nexus Prime. She could only watch as the holographic displays showed the fleet assembling. 10,000 warships, more firepower than humanity had ever seen, were moving toward the Sol system. Earth's defense force consisted of only 500 ships. They were designed for peacekeeping and patrol, not for war. Admiral Shaw, a 63-year-old veteran who had spent his career promoting cooperation with alien species, commanded the fleet from Earth's orbital station. When the Armada appeared at the edge of the solar system, knew immediately that there was no hope of victory. But he also knew that his people needed time. Time to evacuate, time to escape, time to survive. "All ships form a defensive line," he ordered. "We cannot win this battle, but we can slow them down. Every minute we buy is another transport full of civilians reaching safety." The human fleet fought bravely. They used every trick they knew, every tactic they had ever developed. They rammed enemy vessels when their weapons ran dry. They flew into the paths of missiles meant for evacuation ships. They died one by one, but they did not run. It was not enough. The fleet brushed aside the human defenders and descended upon Earth. The bombardment began at noon Greenwich time. Energy beams rained down from orbit, turning cities into craters. Nuclear fire consumed forests that had stood for thousands of years. The oceans boiled. The atmosphere burned. General Lane commanded Earth's ground defenses from a bunker deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. She watched the reports come in, each one worse than the last. New York gone, London gone, Tokyo, Beijing, Mumbai, Sydney all gone, billions of people erased in moments. She managed to send one final transmission to Admiral Shaw, who had survived the space battle by retreating to a hidden station in the asteroid belt. They've destroyed everything, the cities, the forests, the oceans, everything we built, everything we were. Don't let them forget what they've done. Don't let them think this is over. Then the bunker shook, and the transmission ended in static. The bombardment lasted 3 days. When it was finished, Earth was unrecognizable. The blue marble that had been humanity's home for millions of years was now a gray and red wasteland. Smoke and ash filled the atmosphere. Nothing lived on the surface. But humanity was not extinct. 200 million people had escaped. They were scattered across lunar bases, Mars colonies, mining stations in the asteroid belt, and research outposts in the outer solar system. They had fled with whatever they could carry, leaving behind everything they had ever known. Admiral Shaw gathered the survivors. He was a changed man. The officer who had believed in peace and cooperation was gone. In his place stood someone harder, someone colder, someone who had watched his world burn and had sworn that it would never happen again. He addressed the survivors through a fleet-wide broadcast. His voice was calm, but there was something in it that made everyone who heard it shiver. They tried to kill us all. They thought we were weak because we chose peace over war. They thought we were stupid because we trusted them. They were wrong. He paused, letting his words sink in. We will not seek revenge today. We are too few, too weak, too scattered, but we will rebuild. We will grow strong. And one day, when they have forgotten about us, when they think we have faded into history, we will return. And on that day, the galaxy will learn what happens when you try to destroy humanity. The survivors listened in silence. Many were crying. All were angry. They had lost their home, their families, their entire civilization. But they had not lost hope. They had not lost their will to survive. In the ruins of Earth's moon base, a young woman named Blake held her dying mother's hand. She was 25 years old, and she had just watched her entire world die. "Promise me," her mother whispered. "Promise me you'll make them pay." Squeezed her hand. "I promise, Mom, I promise." Her mother smiled weakly and closed her eyes for the last time. Stood up, dried her tears, and walked to the recruitment center. She was not alone. Thousands of survivors were doing the same thing, signing up to serve, to fight, to one day return to the galaxy that had tried to murder them. The thought they had solved the human problem. They celebrated their victory and divided Earth's former territories among themselves. They wrote history books that called humans dangerous primitives who had earned their fate. They had no idea that they had just made the worst mistake in galactic history. Humanity was not dead. Humanity was waiting. And when the time came, humanity would remind the galaxy why it should never have made an enemy of the species that refused to die. 50 years passed, and the galaxy forgot about humanity. The Galactic Council moved on to other matters. New trade agreements were signed, old rivalries flared up and cooled down, and life continued as it always had. The Dominion enjoyed their victory. They had proven their strength by destroying Earth, and no one dared to challenge them. Sometimes, a junior diplomat would ask what had happened to the human survivors. The senior officials would laugh and wave their hands dismissively. The humans were gone, they said, scattered across a few worthless rocks in their home system, slowly dying out. In another generation or two, there would be no humans left at all. They could not have been more wrong. Deep in the outer reaches of the galaxy, far from any trade routes or inhabited worlds, humanity was transforming itself. The survivors had found systems so empty and barren that no other species had bothered to claim them. Frozen moons, airless asteroids, and dim red stars became their new home. Admiral Shaw, now over 100 years old, had overseen the exodus. Advanced medical technology that human scientists developed in exile kept him alive, though his hair had turned white and his face was lined with age and grief. He spent every day planning, organizing, and preparing for the day when humanity would return to the galactic stage. Director Samuel ran the industrial effort. He was a brilliant engineer who had escaped Earth on one of the last transports. His wife and 3 children had not been so lucky. That loss drove him to work 18-hour days, every day, for 50 years. Under his leadership, humanity built shipyards inside hollowed-out asteroids. They constructed factories that produced weapons and armor. They created training facilities where the next generation of soldiers learned to fight. Dr. Torres led the scientific division. She was a genius in multiple fields, from physics to biology to computer science. Her team studied every piece of alien technology they could get their hands on. They took apart captured weapons and figured out how they worked. Then they improved them. Within 20 years, human weapons were more powerful than anything the Council had ever seen. But the greatest breakthrough came in faster-than-light travel. The standard FTL drives used by all galactic species left a detectable signature. Any ship using them could be tracked. This had always been considered an unchangeable law of physics. Torres proved it wrong. Her team developed a new form of FTL that left no trace at all. A human ship could appear in any system, at any time, without anyone knowing it was coming. This technology alone changed everything. It meant that humanity could strike anywhere, and no one could prepare for their arrival. Commander Daniel Price was in charge of military training. He was a hard man who had been a young Marine when Earth fell. He remembered watching the bombardment from a transport window, seeing his vanish in a flash of light. That memory fueled his determination to create the finest fighting force the galaxy had ever known. The children born in exile were different from their parents. They had never seen Earth except in videos and photographs. They had grown up on stories of the attack, of the billions who died, of the injustice that had been done to their people. They were raised to be warriors, scientists, and engineers. Every skill they learned was dedicated to one goal, making sure humanity could never be threatened again. Blake, who had promised her dying mother that she would make the pay, rose through the ranks to become vice admiral. She was now in her 70s, kept young and strong by the same medical technology that sustained Admiral Shaw. She commanded the tactical division and personally trained thousands of young officers. The human fleet grew slowly but steadily. Unlike the rushed, mass-produced ships of the Council species, each human vessel was a masterpiece of engineering. They were faster, tougher, and more heavily armed than anything else in the galaxy. Their shields could withstand bombardment that would destroy 10 normal ships. Their weapons could cut through enemy armor like a hot knife through butter. By the 50th year of exile, humanity had built 1,000 warships. It was a small number compared to the millions of vessels in the combined Council fleets, but quality mattered more than quantity. Each human ship was worth 100 enemy vessels, and the element of surprise would multiply their advantage even further. Admiral Shaw called a meeting of his senior staff on the bridge of the flagship Remembrance. The name had been chosen carefully. Every human ship was named after something that had been lost: cities, landmarks, heroes who had died in the attack. The fleet itself was a monument to the dead, a promise that their sacrifice would not be forgotten. "Status report," Shaw said quietly. Director spoke first. "All ships are fully operational. Weapons and supplies are stockpiled for an extended campaign. Our industrial capacity can replace losses and build new vessels as needed." Dr. Torres nodded. "The stealth FTL system has been installed on all vessels and tested extensively. We can reach any point in the galaxy without detection. Our weapons are at least 2 generations ahead of anything the Council has." Commander Price stood at attention. "The troops are ready, sir. Morale is high. They've been waiting for this their whole lives." Vice Admiral Blake pulled up a holographic display of the galaxy. Red dots marked the locations of military installations. We've been scouting for years. We know where every base, every shipyard, every fleet is located. We know their patrol patterns, their response times, their weaknesses. Shaw studied the display for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was heavy with the weight of 50 years of waiting. I never wanted to be a warrior. I spent my whole career believing that we could live in peace with the other species of the galaxy. I thought that if we were kind enough, patient enough, understanding enough, they would accept us. He turned to face his officers. I was a fool. The galaxy doesn't respect kindness, it respects strength. They didn't attack us because we were a threat. They attacked us because they thought we were weak, because they thought they could get away with it. His eyes hardened. We will teach them otherwise. We will show them that humanity is not weak. We will demonstrate that attacking Earth was the worst mistake they ever made. And when we are done, no species in this galaxy will ever again think about raising a hand against our people. He paused, looking at each of his officers in turn. But we will not become what they are. We will not slaughter civilians. We will not destroy worlds. We will target their military forces, their leaders, their ability to wage war. We will be ruthless, but we will not be monsters. Blake spoke up, and after we've won, what then? Shaw's expression softened slightly. Then we rebuild Earth. We take our place among the stars, and we make sure that what happened to us never happens to anyone else. He straightened in his chair. Signal all ships. The fleet will move out in 24 hours. Our first target is the of 50 years ago. They thought they destroyed us. Tomorrow we prove them wrong. The officers saluted and moved to their stations. Throughout the fleet, crews prepared for battle. Weapons were checked, engines were warmed up, and prayers were said. The silent years were over. Humanity was coming home. The of was a beautiful planet. Its purple forests stretched across 3 continents. Its silver ocean sparkled under twin suns. Massive cities of black stone rose from the landscape, monuments to thousands of years of civilization. 20 billion lived there, confident that no enemy would ever threaten their home. Their orbital defense grid was the most advanced in the galaxy. Thousands of weapons platforms circled the planet, backed up by a fleet of 3,000 warships. Sensors monitored every approach, ready to detect any vessel that came too close. The High Command slept soundly, secure in the knowledge that was untouchable. They were about to learn otherwise. On a quiet morning with no warning at all, the human fleet appeared in orbit around. One moment, the sensors showed nothing. The next moment, 1,000 warships materialized from empty space, their weapons already charging. Admiral Shaw sat in the command chair of the Remembrance, watching the chaos unfold on his tactical display. They were scrambling, trying to understand what was happening. Their communications were filled with confused shouting and contradictory orders. All ships fire at will, Shaw commanded. Priority targets are the defense platforms and military vessels. Avoid civilian structures. The human fleet unleashed its fury. Beams of energy, far more powerful than anything they had ever seen, sliced through their defense platforms like they were made of paper. Missiles streaked across the void, each one smart enough to pick its own targets and avoid civilian areas. Human fighters, small and impossibly fast, swarmed the warships before they could even leave their docks. Commander Daniel Price led the fighter assault from the cockpit of his own vessel. He was 73 years old, but he flew like a man half his age. His squadron tore through the defensive line, destroying 6 capital ships in the first 3 minutes of the battle. "This is for Earth," he said quietly as he watched another enemy vessel explode. They tried to fight back. Their weapons were powerful and their crews were well trained, but they were facing technology 50 years more advanced than their own, wielded by soldiers who had spent their entire lives preparing for this moment. It was not a battle, it was a massacre. Within 2 hours, every military installation on and around was destroyed. The orbital defense grid was gone. The fleet was debris. The planetary command center was a smoking crater. The who had commanded the largest military force in the Council had nothing left but civilian ships and ground forces. Vice Admiral Blake reported the situation to Admiral Shaw. Military targets neutralized, sir. Civilian casualties are minimal. Their population centers are intact. Shaw nodded. Open a channel to their government. The holographic display flickered, and the image of High Commander appeared. He was older now. His scales faded to a dull gray, but his eyes still burned with the same arrogance Shaw remembered from the council chamber 50 years ago. Humans spat the word like a curse. How is this possible? We destroyed you. You destroyed our world, Shaw replied calmly. You did not destroy us. There is a difference. What do you want? If you are here for revenge, then get it over with. Destroy our cities as we destroyed yours. Shaw shook his head slowly. That is not why we are here. We are not like you. We do not slaughter billions to prove our strength. He leaned forward in his chair. We want justice. You will surrender all individuals who participated in the decision to attack Earth. They will face trial for their crimes. You will also surrender all remaining military assets. Your warships, your weapons platforms, your military bases on other worlds. Everything. Scales rippled with anger. You dare demand our surrender. They have never surrendered to anyone. We have ruled this sector for 10,000 years. You ruled because no one could challenge you. That time is over. Shaw's voice was ice cold. You have 1 hour to comply. If you do not, we will continue our operations. We will destroy every military target on this planet, every shipyard, every weapons factory. And then we will move on to your colonies, your allies, your entire dominion. The Council will stop you. The other species will unite against you. Perhaps, but by the time they organize a response, your dominion will no longer exist. 1 hour, High Commander. Choose wisely. The transmission ended. Chose defiance. He broadcast a message across the galaxy, calling on all Council species to unite against the human menace. He ordered his remaining ground forces to prepare for a last stand. He swore that they would never bow to the species they had tried to exterminate. Shaw watched the broadcast without expression. When it ended, he gave a single order. Resume operations. Over the next 6 hours, humanity demonstrated exactly what it was capable of. Precision strikes eliminated every military installation on. Ground forces were neutralized from orbit, their bases destroyed without touching the cities around them. The military, once the terror of the galaxy, ceased to exist as a fighting force. And then the human fleet moved on. The collective was next. They had been enthusiastic supporters of the attack on Earth, providing intelligence and logistical support to the. There fell in 4 days. Their fleet was destroyed, their military bases were rubble, and their leaders were given the same choice: surrender the war criminals or face continued operations. They surrendered. The Empire took 7 days. They fought harder than but the result was the same. Their ancient warrior traditions meant nothing against human technology and human determination. One by one, the 12 species of the Dominion fell. Some surrendered quickly, hopping to minimize the damage. Others fought until they had nothing left to fight with. It made no difference. The human fleet was relentless, appearing without warning, striking with devastating precision, and vanishing before any response could be organized. On the Council of Nexus Prime, the news arrived like a series of hammer blows. Every day brought reports of another defeat, another fleet destroyed, another military power reduced to nothing. The representatives who had once voted to destroy Earth watched in growing horror as the consequences of that decision came home to roost. Speaker called emergency sessions. Ambassadors argued and shouted. Military commanders made grand plans that fell apart before they could be implemented. The Council, which had ruled the galaxy was paralyzed by fear and confusion. We must negotiate, some said. We must offer them whatever they want. We must fight, others insisted. We must assemble every ship we have and destroy them. Fight with what? Came the bitter reply. They are broken, they have surrendered, they are finished. Every fleet we send against them disappears. We don't even know where they'll strike next. The truth was simple and terrifying. The humans had spent 50 years preparing for this campaign. They knew exactly what they were doing. And the Council, which had spent those same 50 years growing soft and complacent, had no idea how to stop them. Admiral Shaw observed the chaos from his flagship, monitoring intercepted communications and intelligence reports. His face remained expressionless, but inside, he felt a grim satisfaction. The species that had tried to murder his people were learning what it meant to be helpless, to face an enemy they could not defeat, to watch everything they had built come crashing down. It was exactly how humanity had felt 50 years ago. "Sir," Blake reported, "the Dominion military structure has been completely neutralized. All 12 member species have either surrendered or been reduced to non-combatant status. What are your orders?" Shaw was quiet for a moment. "Set course for Nexus Prime. It's time to have a conversation with the Council." A single human ship appeared in orbit above Nexus Prime. It was not a warship but a small diplomatic vessel. It carried no weapons, no soldiers, and no threats. It carried only one passenger. Ambassador Porter was 93 years old. Her hair was silver, her face was lined with age, and she walked with the help of a cane. But her eyes were sharp, and her mind was sharper. She had waited 50 years for this moment, and nothing would stop her from seeing it through. The council chamber was packed when she arrived. Representatives from over 200 species filled the seats, their translator devices buzzing as they whispered to each other. The air was thick with fear. Everyone remembered what had happened the last time a human ambassador stood in this room. Everyone knew that things were very different now. Walked slowly to the podium at the center of the chamber. She recognized some of the faces around her, children and of the beings who had voted to destroy her world. She felt no hatred toward them. They had not made that decision, but they would witness its consequences. Speaker, still leading the council after all these years, called for silence. The chamber fell quiet. Ambassador Porter said carefully, "Welcome back to Nexus Prime. We are prepared to discuss terms." Smiled. It was not a warm smile. "Thank you, Speaker, but I am not here to discuss terms. I am here to deliver them." She touched a control on the podium and a holographic display appeared behind her. It showed Earth as it had been before the attack. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds against a black sky. Beautiful, full of life. Then the image changed. The Earth in the new picture was barely recognizable. The oceans were gray and dead. The continents were with impact craters and burn marks. The atmosphere was choked with ash. It looked like a corpse. 12 billion people, said quietly. That was the population of Earth when you voted to destroy it. 12 billion men, women, and children, families sitting down to dinner, students studying for exams, parents playing with their kids, all of them gone in 3 days. She let the silence stretch. We asked for nothing but friendship. We traded fairly, we honored our agreements, we helped whenever we were asked. And in return, you listened to lies and voted to murder us all. The representative, a young male who had replaced the now captured, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The decision was made by our predecessors. We were not even born when. I know, interrupted. I am not here to punish you for the crimes of your fathers, but I am here to ensure that such crimes never happen again. She changed the display. Now it showed a list of names, 23 in total. These are the individuals directly responsible for the attack on Earth. Some were military commanders who planned the operation. Some were political leaders who pushed for the vote. All of them are guilty of genocide. She pointed at the list with her cane. They will be surrendered to human custody. They will face trial before a joint human council tribunal. If found guilty, they will be punished according to the severity of their crimes. The chamber erupted in protests. Dozens of representatives shouted objections, calling the demand outrageous, illegal, a violation of sovereignty, waited patiently until they exhausted themselves. "I understand your concerns," she said when the noise died down. 50 years ago, I stood in this same chamber and begged you to spare my world. I appealed to your sense of justice, your compassion, your honor. You ignored me." Her voice hardened. "Now humanity is not begging. We are informing. You will surrender these individuals, or Admiral Shaw will come and take them. And if he is forced to come here, he will not be as gentle as I am." Speaker raised her crystalline hand. "Ambassador, surely we can negotiate. These terms are harsh. Perhaps there is room for compromise." Shook her head. "There is no room for compromise on justice, but there is more." The display changed again, showing a new list. First, the war criminals will be surrendered. Second, the Dominion will be permanently dissolved. The species involved will be forbidden from forming military alliances with each other for a period of 100 years. Third, humanity will be granted a permanent seat on this council, with full voting rights and veto power over any military action. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the chamber. Fourth, reparations will be paid. The amount will be determined by an independent commission, but it will be sufficient to fund the complete restoration of Earth and the resettlement of our surviving population. Fifth, and most importantly, this council will adopt a new charter. She pulled up the text of the proposed charter. Under this charter, preemptive strikes against any member species will be forbidden. Any species that launches such an attack will be immediately expelled from the council and subjected to complete economic and military sanctions by all other members. Violations will be punished, not debated. The ambassador stood up. "This is tyranny. You cannot impose your will on the entire galaxy." Turn to face him. "Can't we? Your fleet is destroyed. Your military bases are rubble. Every species that participated in the attack on Earth has been reduced to the same state. Right now, the human fleet is the only significant military force in this sector of the galaxy." She let that sink in. "We could destroy you all. We could burn your worlds as you burned ours. We have the power to do it, and many of my people believe we would be justified. But we choose not to. We choose mercy over revenge. We choose to build a better future instead of repeating the mistakes of the past." Her voice softened slightly. 50 years ago, you tried to commit genocide against humanity. You failed. We survived. We grew stronger. And now we have the opportunity to create something that has never existed before. A galaxy where species can live together without fear that their neighbors will destroy them on a whim. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representative after representative. "That is what humanity wants, not conquest, not empire, just the guarantee that what happened to us will never happen to anyone else. Is that really so unreasonable?" The chamber was silent. Speaker spoke carefully. "And if we refuse your terms, then we will assume that this council remains a threat to humanity's existence. We will destroy every military installation, every weapons factory, every warship in the galaxy. We will reduce you to a pre-state if necessary, and then we will leave you to rebuild on your own, just as you left us." Leaned on her cane, suddenly looking every one of her 93 years. "I do not want that. I have spent my entire life working for peace between species. I still believe that peace is possible, but I will not sacrifice humanity's safety for the sake of beings who have already proven they cannot be trusted." She straightened up. "You have 1 week to decide. Use the time wisely. Consider what you have done and what kind of galaxy you want to live in. Admiral Shaw is waiting for your answer." She turned and walked out of the chamber without looking back. The council debated for 6 days. Some demanded defiance, insisting that the galaxy must unite against human aggression. Others pleaded for acceptance, arguing that humanity's terms were harsh but fair given what had been done to them. Still others suggested counter-proposals, compromises, alternatives. In the end, it came down to a simple calculation. The human fleet was real. The human weapons were real. The destruction of the Dominion was real. The Council could accept humanity's terms and survive, or it could refuse and be destroyed. On the 7th day, Speaker broadcast the Council's response. "The Galactic Council accepts humanity's terms. All war criminals will be surrendered. The Dominion is hereby dissolved. Reparations will be paid. The new charter will be, and humanity is welcomed back to the galactic community with full rights and privileges." On the Bridge of the Remembrance, Admiral Shaw listened to the broadcast with Blake at his side. "It's done," said, "we won." Shaw shook his head slowly. "We survived, we achieved justice, but 12 billion people are still dead. Earth is still a ruin. There are no winners here, only survivors." He turned away from the display. "Set course for Earth. It's time to go home." The war criminals were tried on a space station orbiting the ruins of Earth. It seemed fitting that they should face judgment within sight of the world they had destroyed. High Commander was among the first to stand trial. He was old now, his scales dull and cracked, his eyes no longer burning with arrogance. He listened as witnesses about the attack, as evidence was presented showing how he had personally ordered the destruction of civilian population centers. When asked if he had anything to say in his defense, was silent for a long moment. "I did what I believed was necessary," he finally said. "Humans were a threat to the natural order of the galaxy. Their technology was advancing too quickly. Their population was growing too fast. If we had not stopped them, they would have eventually dominated us all." Admiral Shaw, sitting in the observation gallery, listened without expression. "And now," the tribunal judge asked, "do you still believe the attack was justified?" Looked out the window at the surface of Earth below. "Now I understand that we created the very thing we feared. We attacked humans because we thought they would become our enemies. In doing so, we made them into enemies far more terrible than anything we imagined." He turned back to face the tribunal. "I do not ask for mercy. I do not deserve it, but I will say this. The humans had every right to destroy us and they chose not to. That is something they would never have done. Perhaps we were wrong about them from the beginning." Was found guilty and sentenced to life imprisonment. He would spend his remaining years on a prison station, watching the world he had tried to destroy slowly come back to life. The other trials followed the same pattern. Some defendants were defiant, some were remorseful, but all were convicted. The evidence was overwhelming. Justice, delayed for 50 years, was finally served. As the trials concluded, humanity began the long process of healing. Earth's restoration was a massive undertaking. The atmosphere had to be cleaned, the oceans had to be purified, and the soil had to be made fertile again. It would take centuries to bring the planet back to what it had been, but the work had already begun. Terraforming drones spread across the continents, planting genetically engineered vegetation designed to absorb toxins and release oxygen. Ocean purification stations worked around the clock, filtering the poisoned water and restocking it with marine life. Slowly, painfully, Earth was being reborn. Millions of humans who had been born in exile made the journey to their ancestral. Many had never seen a blue sky or felt rain on their faces. When they stepped out of their transports onto Earth's healing surface, many of them wept. Vice Admiral Blake was among them. She stood on a hill overlooking the Pacific Ocean, now slowly returning to its natural blue color. She was 78 years old, but she felt like a child seeing the world for the first time. Admiral Shaw found her there as the sun was setting. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said quietly. Nodded. "I never thought I would see this. My mother told me stories about Earth, but I never really believed I would stand here." "Your mother would be proud of you. She would be proud of all of us." They stood in silence for a while, watching the waves roll onto the shore. "What happens now?" asked. "The war is over. The Council has accepted our terms. What do we do with ourselves?" Shaw smiled, a genuine smile that had been rare on his face for 50 years. "We live, we build. We raise families and grow old and pass our stories on to the next generation. That's what humans have always done. That's what we do best." He looked up at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. "The fleet will remain active, of course, not as a weapon of war but as a guarantee. As long as we are strong, no one will think about attacking us again. But our primary mission now is protection, not revenge." "And the Council, do you trust them?" Shaw considered the question carefully. "No, I don't trust anyone who stood by while our world burned, but I believe they have learned their lesson. Fear is a powerful teacher, and they are very afraid of us now." He turned to face directly. "I am going to retire. I have been fighting this war for 50 years, and I am tired. You will take command of the fleet." His eyes widened. "Sir, I don't know if I'm ready for that responsibility." "You are. You have been ready for years. And unlike me, you can lead without being consumed by the past. That's what humanity needs now, leaders who can look forward instead of back." He put a hand on her shoulder. "I spent half my life planning revenge. Now that it's done, I find that I don't know what to do with myself. But you can be different. You can be part of the generation that builds instead of destroys." Was quiet for a long moment. "I'll do my best, sir. I'll try to honor everything you've taught me." "I know you will." Shaw turned and walked back toward the transport that would take him to his retirement quarters, a small house being built on the shore of what would someday be a restored Mediterranean Sea. In the months that followed, the galaxy settled into a new normal. The Council Charter was, with humanity's veto power ensuring that no species could ever again vote for genocide without consequences. Trade routes reopened, diplomatic relations were established, and slowly, carefully, trust began to build. Not all wounds healed quickly. There were humans who would never forgive the Council species, who wanted nothing but eternal hostility. There were Council members who resented humanity's newfound power, who whispered about finding ways to bring them down. The scars of the past would take generations to fade. But there were also signs of hope. Young humans traveled to alien worlds, curious to learn about the galaxy beyond Earth. Young aliens visited the restoration projects on Earth, eager to see the world their ancestors had tried to destroy. Friendships formed across species lines. Partnerships developed. The galaxy began to change. Ambassador Porter, now 95 years old, gave her final speech to the Council before retiring. 50 years ago, I stood in this chamber and begged for my people's lives. You refused to listen. Today, I stand here as the representative of a species that has every reason to hate you, but chooses instead to work with you." She looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives. "Humanity did not survive because we were stronger or smarter than you. We survived because we refused to give up. We survived because we believed that our existence mattered, that our children deserved a future, that our species had something valuable to offer the galaxy." She smiled, and this time it was warm. "That is the lesson of Earth's revenge. Not that humanity is dangerous, though we are. Not that violence solves problems, though sometimes it does. The real lesson is that every species deserves the chance to live, to grow, to become whatever it has the potential to become." Her voice grew stronger. "The new charter exists to protect that chance. Not just for humans, but for every species in this galaxy. The strong will not prey on the weak. The many will not destroy the few. We will settle our differences through words, not weapons. And if anyone forgets this lesson, humanity will be here to remind them. She gathered her notes and prepared to leave. Earth is healing, humanity is growing, and the galaxy is changing. 50 years ago, that change was born in tragedy. Today, it offers hope. Let us not waste it. She walked out of the chamber for the last time, her head held high. The galaxy remembered what humanity had done. They remembered the silent years of preparation, the devastating campaign of retribution, and the mercy that had been shown when destruction would have been easier. They told stories about the small blue world that had been burned to ash and the relentless people who had risen from that ash to reshape the stars. No one ever forgot the lesson. In the centuries that followed, as Earth returned to its former beauty and humanity took its place as one of the great powers of the galaxy, the story was passed down from generation to generation. It was taught in schools on 1,000 worlds. It was discussed in philosophy classes and military academies. It became a warning and an inspiration. Never underestimate the species that refuse to die. Never attack those who have shown you kindness. And never, ever assume that today's victim will not become tomorrow's judge. Earth's ruthless revenge left the Galactic Council astonished, and the galaxy would never be the same.